Here's my question. If you have your choice, you're going to the wrecking yard. Which motor would you rather pick for boost? 5.3 or 6.0? We're going to take a look. Oh, and this, don't worry about that. It's just a backdrop. This M90 supercharger, I got a whole video coming out on that. But guess what? His name is Dyson, because he sucks. Come on, bro. What's the best motor for boost? 5.3, man, it's got it going on. Got those thick cylinders, indestructible, man. You run 1,000,000 pounds of boost. The fastest stock bottom end motor in the world runs a 5.3, because 5.3 is definitely the way to go. 6.0s, don't even know what's going on. Come on, bro. Seriously, 5.3, that cute little motor, you can't even handle it. Why don't you set up something big? 6.0, you don't even know. Bigger, better for boost. Okay, guys, take it easy. In this video, we're going to compare the 5.3 liter to the 6.0. Which one's better for boost? We're going to take a look at the benefits of each, the shortcomings of each, and different situations where you might choose one over the other. And as always, I've got dyno data. Okay guys, we're going to get things started by talking about the differences between a 5.3 and a 6.0 to find out which one you guys think you'd like more or choose if you were going to build a turbo combination. And we're going to get into this, but we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of different turbo combinations. So right now, let's take a look at, what if a guy was going to go to the junkyard, pick up a motor, and run it kind of stock, maybe with boost, stock cam kind of thing, maybe for a daily driver, that kind of deal. And then we'll go to the other end of the spectrum. We'll take a look at what we'd call, instead of stock, we'd call it stock bottom end. A guy that's going to kind of go all out and try to, make some big numbers, make some big passes, but you still use the stock bottom end because that's really common. So if we take a look at, if we go to a junkyard and get a 5.3, it's the normal kind of thing. 350 horsepower, 375 foot-pounds of torque, somewhere in that range, plus or minus 10 horsepower, 10 foot-pounds of torque. Now, back in the day, I know it's easy for modern guys to look at this and dismiss it like it was nothing, but there was a time not long ago that guys would go to GM Performance and buy a crate 350 that made 350 horsepower, and they'd spend pretty big money on it. Now you just go down to the junkyard, and for a few $100, you can get a complete motor that already does this, and it's pretty impressive, and it's got a great torque curve. So it really is a good time to be like a performance enthusiast, because these motors work out really well. But one thing they do is they work out even better. So if you're going to get one and try to make some boost with it, so let's take a look and see what happens when we add a little bit of boost. See, big jump. This is a stock cam, stock motor. This particular one, I think, had valve springs in it. But all we did was add about 10 pounds or so. And, we're over 600 horsepower. So 600 horsepower in anything is going to be a lot of fun. And the nice thing about this is it's a stock cam with boost. It's going to idle and drive just like a stock one does. It's just going to have a ton more power and torque. Should last forever. You don't have to rev it very high because it makes peak power fairly low. This is a good combination, and this is why the 5.3 is so popular. It's cheap, it's readily available, you can go get them at any yard, and they make this kind of power. So for a stock combination, it's really hard to beat that 5.3. And one of the benefits it has over a 6 liter, let's say, is cost. I mean, you can go down to the junkyard for $200 or $300 and find them. I've been going to wrecking yards for a long time, and I've gotten a lot of LS motors, and I think I've yet to actually find a 6 liter in the junkyard. I mean, I can call and order them, and guys snatch them up, but they're harder to find, and they're a lot more expensive than a 5.3. So that's something the 5.3 definitely has over a 6 liter. And if you take a look at this, I mean, that's a ton of power. Do you need more than that for like a kind of a daily driver deal? Maybe, maybe not. That's up to you. But this is a good combination. It's inexpensive. It's easy to do. Requires no special camshafts or cylinder heads or intake manifolds. You can do this with a factory fuel injection. It works just fine. So that little 5.3 is hard to beat. It's got a lot going for it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about a stock bottom end 5.3, which would be distinguishable from the stock 5.3. Now, a stock bottom end is a guy that's really going after the power, but using the stock bottom end. Now, obviously, if you're going to do a 5.3, we'd recommend that you do a Gen 4 because it's going to be stronger. But even with the Gen 3 stuff, you can make a ton of power, as we'll see here. So on a stock bottom end, like when we did the Big Bang stuff, you would, what we did was try to improve the power output of the naturally aspirated combination as best we could. In this case, we did fairly well. As you can see, we made 500 horsepower with it. And that was basically a stock bottom end with ring gap. And then we added heads, cam, and intake to it. And then here's what we did when we added basically all the boost that we could throw at it. It made over 1,300 horsepower. I think it was 1,308 at about 24 and a half pounds. And you see we only revved it to 62 or 6,300, which everyone's yelling at me for. Why don't you rev that thing? And I should have, because obviously the power is still climbing and climbing quite rapidly. So there is a ton of power left in this. And remember, this was a Gen 3 motor and not a Gen 4. So that brings us to the discussion on, is the 5.3 a viable candidate to make really a serious amount of power with? And obviously the answer is yes. I mean, we were only running 24 pounds, and there are guys out there running, you know, as much as 40 pounds, let's say, on these combinations. Now, it's important to remember that we made a certain amount of power at this boost level, and when somebody says that I ran mine at more boost than that, that doesn't necessarily mean that they made more power. Because you see, if you run 40 pounds of boost and you're only running 10 degrees of timing, you're not going to make nearly as much power as you would if you had more timing. And I mean, if you take a look at the video that I did, it's right here. If you take a look at that video, you can see that it's a video I did on the effect of timing, basically a pump gas tune versus a race gas tune. So we ran, you know, if we show we ran the same amount of boost, and we had the right amount of timing, but if you take a bunch of timing away like you would when you have pump gas, I mean, it's easy on a turbo motor to lose 100 or even 200 horsepower from not having the timing that the motor really wants to do to make power. So regardless of that, the 5.3 is definitely a viable candidate for making big power, especially in Gen 4 guys. So if you have a Gen 4 short block, and you put ring gap in it, and you did what we did, although some guys are running them with stock heads, even if you just did a cam and springs and had a bunch of boosts, you can definitely make a ton of power. So let me know, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, how much power do you think you can make? Like if I were to do the Big Bang again, and we were to do it with a Gen 4 5.3, because it has really thick cylinders and it will hold 1,000,000 pounds of boost, as one of the bros was telling us, how much power do you think we can make? I mean, could we make more than we've made with the 6-liter? Because that's the big question. We're going to get to that in a second. We're going to compare the 5.3 to the 6.0, both as kind of a stock one and as a stock bottom end kind of ultimate kind of deal. What do you think? Do you think that the 5.3 has the potential to make that much power? I mean, do you think that that's the limiting factor? Is the little displacement of the 5.3 going to hurt it against a 6.0? What do you guys think? Can it make the power? Can we run 40, 50 pounds of boost on one of these things with a stock bottom end and beat that 1,540 horsepower that we made with a 6-liter? Let me know what you think. Let's check out that 6-liter. An interesting thing happened while I started filming this video and I got most of the way through right to this point. I realized that I wanted to show you the stock 6.0 that we'd run on the dyno and then the stock 6.0 with turbo so that we could compare that to the 5.3 that we showed you previously. And then it dawned on me, I haven't ever run a stock 6-liter with boost. So obviously I need to get back on the dyno and do that. But what this does is give me an opportunity to show you, we're going to jump right to, this is the stock 6-liter by the way, and a bone stock. This is an LQ4, made just over 400 horsepower, 405 horsepower in stock trim, and 439 foot-pounds of torque. And this is run in the same manner that we always run, that we showed you when I showed you the 5.3 as well. Long tube headers, open throttle body, Mazir electric water pump, and optimized tune and all that. So this is what the 6-liter made, and you can see they do very well. It's very torquey and stuff. But if we jump right in, and I'll show you what happens when we run a, you know, if we're going to jump right over to the stock bottom end stuff where we're going to try to maximize the 6-liter, I'll show you that stuff, and then we can talk a little bit about different situations where we would choose maybe this 6-liter or maybe choose the 5.3. Different examples of that. So here's our modified 6-liter. And we've done a lot more than that, but this was the one that we did for the Big Bang deal. It made about 550 horsepower. And we moved the torque curve out a little bit, made 462 foot-pounds of torque. Now that motor had trick flow, 225 heads, and a race sniper intake, and a stage 3 twin turbo cam. So it did okay. I mean, we've gotten a lot closer to 600 with an NA 6-liter. But then when we added like all the boost to it, that was 29 pounds. I've showed you guys that before. (1,540 horsepower. Now that's a 6-liter. So, you know, the argument has always been between the 5.3 and the 6-liter is that the 5.3 can make more power because it has those thick cylinders and the thick sleeves, and they don't distort, and they'll take more power. But here's my question. I know in all of the Gen 3 motors that I ran, the 4.8, the 5.3, and the first 6 liter that I did were all Gen 3 motors. Never did I come across a problem where I had an issue with the bores distorting because the sleeve in the cylinder was too thin. In every case, and certainly on those Gen 3 motors, that's not the thing that's going to give away on a stock bottom end motor. So even though the 5.3 has that as a benefit, and everyone touts it and says, yeah, that's why the 5.3 is the best choice, because it has the really thick cylinders and you can bore them out so much and they're so strong, and that's why we use them for turbo. And that also that the head gasket seals so well, because when you have thick cylinders, you have a lot of room between them, and so there's more room there for the head gasket to seal. It's harder for, obviously, the cylinder pressure to go between one and the other, because it has much more head gasket that would have to burn through. So that's the theory. But here's the thing. On all of those tests with the Gen 3 motors, we obviously made a lot of power here, but on all those tests with the Gen 3 motors, the thing that's going to break on the Gen 3 motor on a stock bottom end deal when you're trying to maximize the power output is always the connecting rod. I mean, the connecting rod is always the first thing to go. It's the thing that broke on the 4.8, on the 5.3, and ultimately on the first 6 liter. Now, I will say though that I've only run one Gen 4 motor with maximum boost, and that's this 6 liter. And it's still alive, and we'd run this power output at 29 pounds, and we topped out the map sensor, but it's still alive. And so maybe with a Gen 4 rod in a 5.3, we might be able to get to a point where cylinder wall distortion becomes a problem. But if you look at the power output of this 6.0, think about how much power it would take for the 5.3 to get to 1,543 horsepower. The nice thing about the 6 liter is it makes more power NA. It has more torque, it has more power, and then when we add boost to it, we can get to any power level at a lower boost level, which is, in my opinion, always good. So here's my question. If you're going to choose one for a stock motor, and you're going to just run boost with a stock cam and basically a stock build and run around, which one would you choose? Is the 5.3 good enough at 600 horsepower you could drive around every day? Do you want more torque on a 6 liter? Because on a stock one, you know, maybe you're going to be up 50 or 100 horsepower at the same boost level as you'd run on the 5.3. If you're only limiting it to 600 horsepower, does it really matter which one you choose, a 5.3 or a 6.0? Now, especially when you consider the price. The 5.3 is definitely going to be less money. So, in my opinion, that's going to make people choose the 5.3 over the 6.0, regardless of what happens with the power, even if the 6.0 can make more power. So on a stock deal with a turbo, I think 5.3 probably is a choice. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments, which one would you choose for that application. Now let's jump over to the heavy-hitting stock bottom end deal. For an all-out kind of deal, if you're going to try to make a ton of power, now which one would you choose? Well, you have the same cost consideration there, because the 5.3, they're readily available, they're out there, they're easy to buy, they're cheaper than a 6 liter. But in my opinion, I think that the 6 liter can still make more power. I mean, I don't think I don't think we'll get to the cylinder wall problem at these power levels. And to make the same amount of power with a 5.3 as you do with a 6.0, you're gonna have to run a lot more boost. I mean, if you're starting out at 500 on the 5.3 and you start out near 600 on the 6.0, I mean, just do the math on that. It's gonna take a lot more pressure, a lot more cylinder, or a lot more boost pressure to make the 5.3 create the kind of power that a 6.0 does. So let me know what you think. On a stock bottom end deal, is 5.3 still the way to go because they're cheap and because you might be able to make the power that you want? Or would you want extra power offered by the 6.0? Would you run into problems with back pressure because of the turbo sizing? Let me know what you guys think. In my opinion, I like the bigger motor because I think it will make more power, and I like making more power at less boost. But that 5.3 always works well, and I haven't run one of those with the Gen 4 stuff in it, but I'd like to. So there you go. Let me know what you think. That's what I think. Let's get to our conclusion. Well, which one do you choose? 5.3 or 6.0? You know, in my opinion, most guys are going to make the decision to pick a 5.3 just based on cost. But think about this. What if you were picking an NA motor? What if you were not running boost and you were to put an NA motor in an old muscle car, Chevelle, a Camaro, or truck or van, whatever it is, but it's going to be an NA motor. In my opinion, the 6.0. I want the extra power and the extra torque offered by the bigger motor. And yes, I know it's more expensive, and that's definitely a consideration. If you can't afford it, there's going to be no contest. You're definitely going to pick the smaller motor. But if you can, even though the 6.0 might be 2 or 3 times more money than the 5.3 is, it just has more to give. Now, what about another situation? What about if you're running a small turbo, a GT45, or something smaller than like a 78, 75 or below? Something where the 5.3 could use all of what that turbo has to offer. So it's going to be less than 1,000 horsepower, more like 600 or 700 or 800 horsepower. So the 5.3 can do everything that that turbo has. What about that situation? The 6.0 might actually be too big for those small turbos, might have higher back pressure. And since the 5.3 can make all the power that that turbo can support, in my opinion, 5.3, probably a better way to go. Now, what about for all out, like we were talking about earlier? What about for a stock bottom end deal where you're going to turn the boost all the way up and try to make as much power as you can? Let me know in the comments. What do you think about that particular one? 5.3 still the way to go? I think guys are going to choose that anyway, just because of cost. But is it still the way to go? Can we make more power with a 6-liter? Let me know what you think. Guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. I'll keep you in the videos. Got some cool stuff coming up tomorrow.